Welcome to the Baltimore City Council chambers. We're not on? Yeah, we're on. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening to the Baltimore City Council chamber, where we will have a hearing before Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee. I'm Carl Stokes, chair of the committee. To my immediate left is Council President Bernard C. Jack Young. To his left is my colleague and a member of the committee, Councilman Warren Branch of the 13th Council District. To my immediate right is Jennifer Coates, council staff to this particular committee. Yes, and to the far right is Ms. Kara Kuntz, who is legislative matters, that's not a right title, but legislative staff to the president of the city council. And so we're here this evening for Council Bill LO 14-0115, which is legislative oversight. It's a procurement pertaining to the procurement of consultant services in regards to water efficiency, as well as the home serve warranty letters. And we're actually going to do this in two parts, beginning with the home serve warranty letter. The proceedings this evening are being televised live on local cable television, as well as it will be streamed live, and then citizens are welcome to pull it up at their convenience, and there will be repeated airings of the television broadcast also. So today's hearing, again, there are two purposes. One is the committee will seek information on the Bureau's motivation for the study, the decision to hire a consultant rather than relying on internal expertise, the process for selecting the consultant. This is the procurement of consultant services for a water and wastewater efficiency study. Also, we'll speak to the scope of the study and plan consultation with customers, the workforce, and their representatives, and the committee will provide opportunity for public testimony. And if you do wish to testify, there will be one panel that will be brought up to speak. But if you do wish to testify, there is a sheet in the back in the lobby. It looks like this. Please sign in, everyone, and if you wish to testify, to the left of your name is a box in which you can check testify. For those who are standing, if you wish, there is seating upstairs in the balcony. You would go up to the 6th floor. This is the 4th floor. You would go up to the 6th floor, either by the stairwell or the elevators, and that will bring you to the balcony just above us. Thank you. The second portion, and which we will take first, be a conversation on the home serve warranty letters. The committee will seek information on the circumstances that led the Bureau to recommend private insurance, the appropriateness of recommending a single insurer, the legal relationship between the Bureau and the insurer, the process for selecting the insurer, the coverage provided, and the value to customers. Mr. President, are you interested in making any statement before we begin? Thank you. So I will now ask Mr. Rudy Chow, who's the director of Department of Public Works. He would come forth. Also, Ms. Angela Gibson of the Mayor's Office is with us also, and we will acknowledge others who may be in the room in just a moment. So we'll now ask Mr. Rudy Chow to speak to the home serve warranty letters on that matter. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, as well as fellow council member. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to come here to speak about the service protection program that we have rolled out recently. So before I go into, I just want to give some facts. This service protection program is not an insurance policy. It is similar to what you would purchase from a retailer, such as after purchasing a car or television as such. The decision to purchase a service protection program from HomeServe is the customer's. It is voluntary, it's not mandatory. Customers who do not purchase a service protection program from the vendor we recommended or purchase a protection program at all, they are certainly welcome to look for others. Purchasing and billing of the service protection program from HomeServe is a contract between the customer and the vendor, not between the customers and the city. So as you know, I started the city nearly 4 years ago.
I'm sorry, someone said they couldn't hear? Okay. I know the chamber is not conducive to good hearing, even to people with good hearing, and I don't have good hearing.
So I will try to speak
louder
louder
if you can, sir. Thank you.
So as you know, I started the city nearly 4 years ago. One of the things that was very evident to me as I started the city is the crumbling infrastructure, the underground infrastructure that we have technically and effectively have not renewed for quite some time. As the city ramping up on our replacement rehab program to basically rehab our nearly 4,000 miles of water mains on the ground. We know the homes that we serve, the service line leading up to the homes are also nearly 80 years old, just like our water system. As the city experiencing failures in our water mains, our citizens are also experiencing failures on their service line, whether it's water service or sewer laterals. 2 years ago, our Mayor Stephanie Rollins-Blake, charged DPW with finding a private program to assist the homeowner to pay for repairs should the lines fail. Generally speaking, a complete water line replacement will cost in the neighborhood around $22,000 or $3,500, whereas sewer lateral replacement will cost anywhere from $3,500 to $6,000, and that's very costly. And these lines could fail at a spur of the moment notice, and then the homeowner is facing with this daunting bill that they had to pay. So what we did was we basically reached out the number of service provider, these extended warranty programs providers, which, by the way, they are already soliciting in the city for a number of years now. Because our city is not alone when it comes to failing infrastructure. This is something that is experienced nationally across the country in all cities and all utilities. So we issued an RFP, basically tried to standardize and what we call the best practices in terms of repairs. We want to make sure this process is transparent. It involves public procurement process as we take the RFP through the purchasing process. And help define specific and acceptable parameters for the program and at lowest cost possible. Allows the city to regulate the service and reporting requirements for the selected vendor. As I stated, there are only a handful of vendors out there provide such a service, but their service level varies, their pricing varies, and we want to make sure we select the best one for our citizens here in Baltimore City. Selecting a recommended vendor does not obligate the customer to go with the vendor that the city had chosen. It does not prevent the customer from doing their own research and selecting another vendor. and does not compel a customer to purchase this service as well. All this is in the purpose of protecting our citizens. 2 years ago, a committee was formed. A committee consists of members from multiple city agencies as well as offices. We surveyed other cities such as Atlanta, Detroit, New York City to obtain information about how their program is meeting the needs of their citizens there. So it took us quite some time to get to eventually, finally leading up to Board of Estimate awarding this contract to HomeServe. HomeServe is a national firm. They provide this type of service for over 20 years, currently serving nearly 2.3 million active policies. It has been providing service to Baltimore City customers for the past 5 years. It is in good standing with the Better Business Bureau and has a 98% customer service satisfaction rating. So regarding the legal relationship between the city and HomeServe, HomeServe is permitted to use the city's logo on mailings to city's water and sewer customers. The city does not receive an administrative fee or any other compensations from HomeServe. HomeServe must use contractors who are licensed to work in Baltimore City, thus creating jobs. HomeServe will fund and administer a low-income fund on behalf of the city for each year of the contract for the purpose of helping our senior citizens and our fixed-income citizens as well as low-income citizens. The cities can terminate this relationship at any time. The city pays nothing to HomeServe, as HomeServe handling billing and advertising, all of which must be approved by the city before release. Just in summary, some quick facts up to date regarding to the program. We have now, as of last week, total number of active customers today under this program is 11,820. Total number of repairs done today is 122. Value of repairs, that means money Baltimore City homeowners has saved, is about $140,000. An average job cost is about $1,150. So I'm here and I can answer if you have any questions.
So, Mr. Chow, again, so you put out an RFP for this matter for the insurer. Is that right?
The
Did I
home
understand
extended
that
warranty.
correctly? Did you put out an RFP for this
Yes, we did.
insurer?
Yes, we did.
And so, again, what was the criteria as it went out, and what allowed the selection to take place for this particular insurer?
Okay. Well, first of all, the criteria is something that the scope that we as a city have written. It basically, we're looking for their customer service, looking at their past history, looking at their claims history, looking at their responsiveness regarding to the citizens' calls, the helpfulness in terms of caring the customer once the call is made, and how quickly the repair is made. Those are the criteria. Of course, the cost of the program itself, we compare from vendor to vendor. The HomeServe, basically now, the cost of the program for the first year introduction rate is $5.99 per month. That's cover both water and sewer services. And will automatically renew for the second year at a cost of $8.49 a month. And this is by far the lowest cost among the competed vendors.
Of course, that set amount it disappears after, I guess, the first annual renewal. So after the first year, the cost is not set. It is currently $849 a month, but it's not set.
No, it's right now, the first year is $599
I
if
got
you
you.
sign up.
It's $599, and I'm talking after
It's $849.
the renewal. The
$849.
renewal, again, is not a set number.
It is a set, $8.49 per month.
No, sir. It says,
It's
it
only
says, I'm reading the letter, you will be renewed annually
Mm-hmm.
at the then current renewal price, currently $8.49 per month. At the then current renewal price. That means when you renew.
right. What we basically did was we locked in the rate at $849 for the first 3 years. From year 4 and 5, that they can ask for a rate increase, but that has to receive the city's agreement.
Okay. All right. It's not exactly clear. So almost every constituent wants to know why the city allowed the letter to go out on their letterhead, appearing almost to be, if not mandatory, to have the full imprimatur and standing of the city. The city of Baltimore wants its customer to be prepared. It goes on to say, we invite you to take advantage of this service of home serve. Why such a seal? Have we done this for any other service? In other words, every October I get 14 packages in the mail from different health insurers as it's time to renew. I don't get something from the city that says use this particular entity, as opposed to 14 entities.
Correct. That was exactly the intent. We want to vet it in advance before we offer to the citizens, and that's exactly what we did. We took it through an RFP process that is transparent, that's fair, and we select the best vendor to meet the needs of our citizens here in this city. So in exchange, we want to make sure this not misunderstood by other vendors where they perhaps using our city seal, which it had happened in the past, that our legal department, our law department had to intervene. The fact that we don't want our citizen to be misled by any other vendors who perhaps use the city seal, as the city is behind their company. We are behind one company, and that's HomeServe, and that company is being vetted extensively through a very transparent process and ultimately selected.
Right, and again, why not offer more options? Why not say to folk that, because the letter is not clear, that there are other options? You know, even when I get my Baltimore Gas and Electric bill, my BGE bill, it tells me I can get other options. And I go to the BGE site, it lists another 20 companies. I don't know if it's 20 or 15 or it's 25, but it lists all of these other companies that on their site that I can go and buy electricity or gas from someone other than, even though they remain the carrier of both the gas and electric. And so the question again that the citizens, and I won't speak for them, they'll be coming forward. Why did we pick one option for citizens and then using our imprimatur, using our seal, give the impression that this is what they had to do, that there are no other options, or that they even needed the insurance, frankly?
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, this is voluntary, it's not mandatory. And the fact is, it's just the path that we have picked, we selected. We didn't want our 600,000 plus citizens out there have to shop around, do the research on their own, and perhaps being misled by some fly-by-night operators and then purchase something that when it comes time, there's a need, and they won't get the service they need. So that's the reason why we took it through the RFP. And the process we did.
So when did we become such a big brother that we had to take folk by the hand, do the work for them, sort out for them what's good, what's bad, what's okay, and then we decide, here's the one, the only one for you, as opposed to allowing folk, and really, when we send it on this letterhead, it looks pretty officially as if we're saying, this is the guy. By the way, we're joined by Councilwoman Helen Holton, 8th District, and a member of a great new addition to this committee. So we're glad to see you, Councilwoman. Are you aware, like you mentioned HomeServe is a national, it's actually an international company, isn't it, or no?
Excuse me?
HomeServe is an international company?
As far as I know, it's a national company.
Okay. Are you aware, I asked that because I'm looking at something and maybe we'll double check, that HomeServe Great Britain, that actually points up that they were hit with HomeServe was hit with a record fine of about 31 million pounds for mis-selling. So let me find out if it's the same HomeServe that we're doing here. Are you aware that HomeServe has been brought up on allegations in other states of misrepresenting, mis-selling?
Well, I guess
Massachusetts, for example, I think they were settled at $75,000.
First of all, let me address your earlier question.
Okay.
Why do we pick this way?
Sure.
From my perspective as the director of DPW, I felt it was the right thing to do. I understand that we spent a lot of time and effort, nearly 2 years, of vetting
Okay.
this process. And you could say that, that why we spend the time and effort. Why not just leave it up to our citizens? And in my humble opinion, we did the right thing
Okay.
for the purpose of protecting our citizens here, knowing full well we are ramping up our water main replacement. We experiencing more than 1,000 breaks annually.
Okay.
1,000 breaks. So every time we repair, the citizens, their homes connecting up to it, some are 100 years old as well. Their services are crumbling as well, the galvanized service line. And like I said, each time you repair, it's not hundreds of dollars, it's thousands of dollars. Now, how many of our citizens has $5,000, $6,000 set aside, just say, in case I have a failure, I'm ready to go. This is a low cost. Now, regarding the second question, do they have perhaps some issues and complaints by others? Guess what? I don't know any service company that don't ever experiencing complaints. It is how they deal with it, and that's how we vetted them. Are they the perfect company that we would not ever hear any complaints from any of our citizens? Perhaps not. But the key is that we have the oversight of that contract, that firm now. So we can leverage, we can speak on behalf of our citizens to protect them. So this is what I call the best of both worlds.
Okay. Council President Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Child, I know the reason why because we're doing a major overhaul of our water system, but it seems to me that if I'm not having problems with my water line now, and we have the company that's coming out to do the water replacement, what's to say that they haven't caused the problem? Then why should I have to pay? I mean, we had this conversation before, because I believe that if I'm not having a problem now, and they coming through to replace the pipes, and then all of a sudden my pipes burst because they might have did something. So why should I bear the burden of proving that and paying for it? Because like I said before, the citizens of Baltimore are paying for this infrastructure improvement anyway. So why not just include that since our water bills go up constantly in the whole program, why not just include everybody's pipes? Because my thing is, if the company come in and they hooking up to my pipe and they damage my pipe, then I have to have insurance to fix it. I don't agree with that.
Okay, our 4,000 miles of water mains, like I said earlier, is about 80 years old. Many of these mains are what we call an unlined cast iron pipe. Unlined cast iron pipe, over time, through oxidation, there's turbulation going on. In essence, the pipeline is choked down with the buildup internally. As we go through the rehabilitation program, whether it's cleaning and lining or outright replacement, we are basically bringing the system pressure and the system volume to how it was designed originally. So there is that possibility. It's very possible a galvanized line that's 80 years old, as the system, the city systems renewed, there could be fluctuation in terms of volume or pressure. It could impact their service connection going towards their house. Now, if the connection that is made by the vendor who is replacing the water main, reconnecting the service line back to the main, if they damage that, that is handled through the contract itself. All of our contract has that responsibility assigned to the contract. If you damage, we expect you to repair. However, if the pressure fluctuation, the volume fluctuation caused downstream, simply because the only thing that holding the pipe together is the earth around it, it's going to fail. And this is for that purpose. It's for that protection.
Well, Mr. Chow, how many contractors do you know, because I don't know any, that would admit to causing a damage to somebody's pipes?
Well, that's why we have our inspectors there. And the city's responsibility is to inspect their connection, inspect the work, and the quality of the work. And our inspectors is authorized and is responsible when the contractor misperform their duties, that we would call upon them to make the repairs. And we have done that.
Okay.
You good?
I ain't good.
I
but
know you're not
okay.
good. Right, okay.
No, I'm not good.
Mr. Chow,
Yes.
back to, and I've been doing, even while we're following up, on the whole home serve. Again, are you aware that this is a company that has been charged on several occasions with misrepresentation, mis-selling?
Well, I've been told this is two subsidiaries, right? And one is the international subsidiary, and then the home serve for the USA is the USA only.
Is what?
It's for the national service for here, for the states. And then there is an international arm that handles international.
Okay. So are you guys going to tell me the same thing about Viola? Are you going to tell me that they're two separate entities? One U.S., one France?
I have not researched Veolia, sir.
Okay, well, get ready.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't, I deeply respect you, so it's just not an adversarial situation here, Mr. Chow, at all. Have these questions. Councilwoman Holton, I do have a few more follow-up, but Councilwoman Holton, if you would, please. We're good now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chow. How are you? To date, how many residents have signed up for this service?
11,820.
And when you embarked on this endeavor, how many did you anticipate would sign up for it?
Well, we didn't have a target, but we know we got about 200,000 accounts inside the city. And I would say vast.
Counts?
Yeah, the inside the city we have 19,928 accounts.
19,000.
928. That means all these homes are eligible for to sign up. Now, it
And
depends on
11,820 have signed up?
11,820, yes.
Okay. Was there or is there an MWBE component to this whole home serve process? In other words, I'm sure home serve is a majority company, but as you know, the letter states that if you make a call that they would contract out a plumber. Is there an MWBE goal as a part of this contract?
Well, first of all, the contractor who is performing the work are city contractors. So they are, that's one of the requirements we have set in our contract with HomeServe is that they must utilize city contractors.
And I'm ecstatic that they're utilizing city contractors. But what is there a minority women business enterprise goal? Because they're city contractors does not say to me that they meet the requirements of minority and women business enterprises.
There was no goal set as part of the contract. However, I've been told that HomeServe, as we have always encouraged them, as many of you know, I'm a proponent of MBE and WBE program. This is something that we have encouraged them to continue to look out for. And remember, these plumbers must be master plumber, certified master plumber, so it's the availability of the pool.
So, Mr. Child, why were there no MWBE goals put on this RFP? I mean, it's a process where I don't envision home service going out to service every call. And it would just seem that for all the efforts that we do in this city to be inclusive and diverse, that there would have been an MWBE component, something that HomeServe would have had to comply with and hopefully exceed so that we could be assured that minority and women business enterprises would have an opportunity to participate on this contract.
Sure. Well, first of all, like I said, the contractor who they are using currently are city contractors, and we'll circle back. We'll find out from them if any of them are MBE or WBE owned.
And this is what concerns me about circling back. Circling back does not necessarily leave room to correct what should have been done on the front end to be more inclusive. What other jurisdictions in the state are implementing a similar program, if any, and what created the idea that we needed to do this? I mean, I understand it's a service providing to citizens that they pay for, and I do know from the calls that have come to my office it can be rather costly if a resident has to go through the yellow pages and call a plumber, so this does make it more affordable. Are there other jurisdictions in the state with a similar program?
Not in the state of Maryland. However, Detroit, Atlanta, and New York cities do have that program.
Detroit, Atlanta,
and New York City.
Would it be possible to get some data on the success of their programs since they've had them in place? And I'm really interested in did they have a MWBE component as a part of their contract?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let's see, there was a point that I was about to make. I'm sorry for that. But HomeServe is not only an insurer, but they are the plumber too, right?
They're not the plumber. They are just the extended warranty service, and they contract to
So can
plumbers.
a resident hire whomever they wish to do the plumbing?
No, what we require them to do is HomeServe will search within Baltimore City any master plumbers that wishes to be on this contract, and it has to be vetted and has to be approved by us. So when there's failure, when the call is made, if the plumber is already on the list, I guess they just go into the rotation. They just get
Right, so
called out.
they do it all. They insure and they do the
Correct.
plumbing. Now, I understand subcontracting, but they contract the plumber,
That's correct. Baltimore City plumbers.
the Baltimore City plumber.
Yes.
I got it. let me ask you, what do you want to do? This is the water. Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chow. We're going to do the water piece with you, and then we'll go to the panel, and then we'll go to the general questions. I said I was going to separate the two, but I've had a thought here that if you would go right into the next issue that's before us, and then we'll go to the panel to speak to both or either issue,
Okay.
and then have some back and forth with the committee, yourself, and the panel. So we do want to talk about the efficiency study. Would you talk to us about what brought this about?
Okay. Well, before I do that,
And what it is first, I'm sorry.
Yeah, before I do that, I just want to make a correction to the figure I gave to Councilwoman Houghton.
All right.
It's 119,928, so missing a 1 in front.
100. I thought 19,000 was
A little
pretty
bit low,
light.
yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
That's a big difference. Add another 100,000.
Because this is regarding to the RFP.
Yes.
Okay. As I stated earlier, I started the city about nearly 4 years ago. One of the things that I have set for my department is that I want the Baltimore City Department of Public Works to be the best run DPW there is. Matter of fact, in the last few weeks, I have met numerous DPW employees on 6 different stand-up town hall type meetings just to speak about this RP, to clarify why we need to do that. Regarding to our vision, I just want to emphasize, the vision of DPW is pretty simple. It's 2 things. 1 is taking care of the environment, and 2 is the safe and well-being of our citizens. I'm in the mix of creating an organization that is committed to carry out our vision. I want us to stay as a public agency with integrity and caring of the citizens, yet operate with the creativity, knowledge, and experience of a private sector to gain efficiency and know-how. In essence, what I'm asking for and want us to transform to is that I want the city to have the best of both worlds. We are not motivated by profit. Our vision is very clear, as I stated earlier, in the environment and the safe and well-being of our citizens. Our mayor, Stephanie Rollins-Blake, has demanded DPW to bring more values to our citizens. We all know every year we're asking for rate increases. We no longer can rely exclusively on annual water rate increases to meet our budget requirements. We are facing declining water consumption due to citizens' awareness on water conservation. We are facing with pressure on our water rates that if we want to maintain the same level of services, in light of the fact that we are facing more than 1,000 breaks, every day we are experiencing on average 3 breaks a year. Our capital program is huge. We are ramping up on our capital programs or capital reinvestment on our above ground and underground assets due to their age and failure rates. This leads to multi-billion-dollar capital program to upgrade our infrastructure. We must generate internal savings through efficiency gains and to correct internal organization misalignments to offset rate increases whenever possible. This is what a responsible world-class organization would do. We have done a number of outstanding things in the last few years and months. We combined our engineering and construction division to improve accountability on project delivery. Large percentage of our budget, in essence, is capital driven. We have 4,000 miles of water mains. We have more than 2,500 miles of sewer main. All these requires renewal. We have not done so for a long time, decades. Before I got here, our water main replacement was merely less than 5 miles a year. And those miles are generally done so in light of an urgent matter, a break as such. And we sought for the opportunity to perhaps replace a section or two at the time, but never in a comprehensive, in a program-driven way. We're no longer doing that. We created an Office of Asset Management to transform our operations from reactive to proactive and to make smart decisions on what, when, where, and how, questions on infrastructure reinvestment. We created an Office of Compliance and Laboratories to provide regulatory transparency and efficiency gain through consolidation. We created an Office of Strategy and Performance to focus on department on how our mission is being carried out and to ensure we execute our annual goals and objectives timely and effectively. We'll be focusing on training of our workforce so they can be more skillful, thus offers institutional flexibilities as well as making our employees more marketable. This RFP for efficiency study is a study that the department has asked for. It was not done so through a solicitation from anyone else. We recognize with enhanced nutrient removal, ENR, coming to both our wastewater treatment plant. And by the way, we own 2 of the largest wastewater treatment plants in the state of Maryland. They will be coming online in the next few years, where we know is going to be more expensive to operate. This is the time to look for efficiencies that perhaps we can use those gains to offset potential water rate increases. Unlike some of the rumors which suggest that the city is interested in selling the water system, on the contrary, this RFP is a means that we are using to ensure that the water system does not get privatized. We all know a private firm is motivated by profit. If we have made our operations as efficiently and effectively as possible, why would any privatizer be interested in buying us? There's no profit to be made. That is precisely what we're doing. So this is not the first step towards privatization. Rather, it is the first step to ensure we stay in the public's hand. In closing, I want to assure the City Council and our citizens that DPW is not looking to sell the water system to anyone. We'll hold on to these precious resources. We recognize these precious resources. Life experience depends on these precious resources, and we will safeguard that resources as best as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, anyone wish to speak before we do a panel?
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll come to you second.
Mr. Chow, this RFP that we're going to do, how much is this going to cost us?
It's about $500,000. However, I mean, that's the upset limit we have set, but we, depends on what the study will lead to. That will determine how much of that $500,000 will be spent.
Okay. I believe within myself that we have people within the water department and working with the unions that could reach those same goals. So why do we always go outside for consultants to do stuff that I believe we have the resources and expertise inside the department to get done? I always talk about we don't need consultants. We have experts right in our own city that can do the work. Because most of the consultants, most of them used to work for the Department of Public Works. And they go out, and form relationships with other companies. Then they come and want to get contracts to tell us what the best practices are. we can talk to the employees. We can talk to the union. We can, sit in the room and come up with all kinds of ideas to keep us efficient and provide the best system that you talked about. We can do that with people without spending that money. So I just want to know, have you and the Department of Public Works engaged the union and engaged the workers in how they can help to build a system second to none? Because I believe we have a great system right now. We have some of the best water in the country in Baltimore. So we have to be doing something right to maintain the quality that we have in Baltimore. So I don't think that we should have to look outside when we need to look inside. Because we did the same thing with the police department.
Yes.
We did a report that the average police officer could have done. And it
Yes.
cost us how much? $300,000.
So to address those multiple questions, let me start by saying this RFP is focusing on water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. As I stated earlier, our E&R process is about to come online in the next couple years. This is a process is not easily run, and I'm speaking from personal experience, going back nearly 30 years when I worked for another utility company. I was the one that started up the first B&R plant in the state of Maryland. It's not an easy process. It's not a process that our current employee has. That's issue number one. Number two, as you stated, many of our retirees has now went about to work for consultant firms and others. Unfortunately, the fact is, in going back decades, we have not have a workforce management system in place to retain those institutional knowledge. We allowed those institutional knowledge to slip out of the city, going into hands of the consultants. We're no longer doing that. We have a robust workforce management program. We talk about training. We talk about extracting the knowledge in folks before they retire, so we can pass on those institutional knowledge to our current workforce and workforce to come. All those things are things that we need to do, any sensible organization should. Unfortunately, many of you have said to me when I started 4 years ago, I inherited a system that requires significant amount of work, and I'm working it. I'm working it every day, and I'm very proud to say it might not be in everybody's liking, but I can tell you our vision is very clear, our mission is very clear. We are on the path to recreate the dominant force in the utility where Baltimore City once were, and we weren't for decades. So in essence, I'm appreciative of your comments. If I feel that we have the internal institutional knowledge that we could carry out this work on our own in the short time that we have, I would have done so. This is a rebuilding process. It did not take us overnight to get to where we are today. It took years. And it's going to take years for us to get out from the current stance, but the future is bright. I can assure you we are on the right path, and we'll get there. And our citizens and our employees will be proud of our accomplishment because they will be part of the team. And I have been reaching out to the union, and as I stated earlier, I have reached out and I have set up 6 town hall meetings with multiple of my employees, went through why we need to do this, how they can help themselves, how they can become more productive for the benefit of carrying out their responsibilities and duties. It's a long road ahead, and we just have to work it.
Well, I appreciate all of that, and I appreciate your candor as it relates to trying to do what's best for the city of Baltimore. However, I still say that we do have the expertise within the agency. What we do in my office for whoever going to be the next president, and I'm hoping the mayor's doing the same thing, whoever going to be the next mayor, a standing operating procedure. I mean, it should be mandatory that each worker has a standard operating procedure manual so that the next person coming behind them would have something. We should have teaming up younger folk with the people who are looking at retiring in the next 5 years to learn everything that they know. We should be doing that. I still don't feel that we should be heavily dependent on consultants. That just don't sit well with me. It really does not, because you came here highly touted, and so far you've been pretty much on the mark. But this RFP with Veolia, I think we need to step back and find out what resources we have within our agency that could do that same work. I just believe we can do it. I believe that we can do it, Mr. Chow, and I'm hoping that we step back, take a deep breath, and re-examine, whether we're going to use a contractor or whether we're going to use our own expertise within Public Works. We have some great engineers. We have some great workers. And what I'm told from some of the employees is that when the contractors come, they ask them for information and how to do this, or they tell them, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. So all they there is in advisory capacity anyway. They're not actually doing the work.
Thank you. Let me mention, thank you, Mr. President, that Councilman Eric Costello, the 11th Council District, has joined us. Councilman.
Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Helen Holton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chow, I'm just curious, and I'm going back to the home serve contract once more. How many responses were received for that RFP?
Got it.
Three, right? Four?
4?
Yeah, four.
Okay. How were they assessed in terms of deciding who would get the contract?
Based on multiple factors such as level service, pricing, responsiveness, timeliness, and among others.
You cited that Detroit, Atlanta, and New York City have a similar program in place. Are any of them using HomeServe?
That I'm not sure. Yes? How many? Why don't you just come on up and sit right here? Sit right next to me. Hold my hand.
Speak.
Hi, I'm Shantae Algiers. I'm the Chief of Special Projects for DPW, and I was actually working on this project. I don't remember my recollection of any of these 3 cities, but we actually looked at some other cities in addition to those 3, and at least 2 of the ones that we went to did actually go with HomeServe in their RFP. All these jurisdictions that we've talked with, the majority of them did an RFP and didn't just sole select a vendor. So I can actually go back through my notes to see who we actually did the research, because we did the research way before we did the RFP,
Okay.
and actually get the breakdown of how many actually went with HomeServe.
That would be helpful. Mr. Chow, you speak about the institutional knowledge that has been lost from the city, creating the need to contract out highly skilled talent. Is there a strategy or plan to replace the lost institutional knowledge versus going with contractors?
Yeah, just FYI, as a background, this year we have hired 9 young engineers freshly graduated from college. These are young engineers that just got their degrees. While some of them is in their master's program, one of them, I believe, was in their PhD program. This is a first step in terms of rebuilding our institutional knowledge. We have, over time, as the downturn of the economy, most companies are out there looking for experienced folks. We have difficulties hiring experienced folks because our rates, our salary is not as competitive as others. So we decided that, guess what? We're going to start homegrown some of these talents. And so this is the first year we attracted. We went through a job fair at colleges, and we attracted some 15 kids, and we interviewed them. And 9 of them came in for what I call a wow session with us, spent all day basically walking them through our operations. And I was very happy. All 9 of them decided to come work for the city, and they are currently on board. And we're going to do this for the coming years, slowly rebuilding that institutional from grounds up. These are young kids are like a sponge. They are learning from our seasoned engineers that perhaps are close to retirement, and they're working alongside with these seasoned engineers to learn the city's way, the getting that institutional knowledge. So this is very much a very deliberate of rebuilding the institutional knowledge from internal rather than hiring the talents from outside. We know if we hire somebody seasoned, there's very highly probability that they may attracted by others because of higher salary or whatever else. But if you grow them from internal and you keep their job interesting and keep them motivated, keep them challenged, I'm hoping that all of them will stay with us. But if some of them leave, that's okay. But if we can retain just some of them, it's a great win for the city in the long run. And we're going to do this. This is a repetitive process. We have set up already, and we are committed to carry that out.
Is there an incentive to offer some of these opportunities to existing employees that may be looking for advancement?
Absolutely. First of all, we currently, unlike in the past, we don't do any designs internally. All of our design works are done by consultants. And I can tell you that does not sit well with me.
Good.
And that's part of the reason why we're beginning to hire these young engineers, because we want to rebuild the internal design capacity, but it's not going to happen overnight. The key is that how do we rid ourselves from the dependency on consultants? Is that it's only done so if you can stand up yourself. Right now, we can't. We have lost all those talents. We have lost all those capacity and capabilities. We no longer where we once were.
So,
it's going to take some time to build.
Who's training our new talent? Our consultants?
Some of them are. Some of them are with our seasoned employee. That's one thing that I have asked for. Most of the consultant contracts now is pretty standard, because I made it very clear to our engineering firms that want to do business with us. It is that, yes, you can come work for us, but you must transfer that knowledge to the person who works for the city. You're no longer just going to do the work and you walk away, and we got to go back to you and ask you for help because we don't have that knowledge. One of your responsibility, unlike what we have never done in the past, it is before you leave, you must offload those experiences and knowledge to somebody internally. So over time, we can do it ourselves. So all these are very calculated, very deliberate methods of standing ourselves up. And I'm only here 4 years, and I can tell you, I wish I have 20 more years, because it's going to take us that long to rebuild a great city with a great proud history behind it. We have a great water system, as the council president has stated. Our water quality is impeccable. Number one, it's been rated best tasting water for a number of years now. But guess what? All we doing is milking what our fathers, grandfather, our founding father has built for us. We have not invested. And that's why we no longer doing that. We are going to reinvest. We are not going to kick the can down the road, giving to our children and our grandchildren says, it's your problem. We are taking up accountability, we're taking up responsibility, and we're owning up to it, and we're working on it. Every little bit of it. There is not a single track within department, whether it's solid waste or water and wastewater, there's not a single office, single division that is standing still right now. We are firing all cylinders. I'm challenging all of them. I expect them to strive. I expect them to excel over time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Child. Councilman Branch, and then we're going to go to our panel. Councilman?
I'm sorry. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Oh, wow.
Keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to knock it up again. Mr. Child, I know you've only been here. I've been working with the city of Baltimore, I say, for about maybe 30 years now. I was, when I first started with the city, I was assigned at Montebello Filtration Plant where we had to go underground to clean those basins. I've seen the millions of dollars over the year that's been pumped into both Ashburton and to Montebello to where they have self-cleaning propeller basins now. I mean, we used to, when I started, we used to, 6 o'clock in the morning, we had to drop the water, then we go in there and with those hoses, and we have to remove all that sludge that was in those basins. They don't have to do that no more. I watched over the years, in fact, in the clear water that was over on Montebello, is what caused the damage down on North Avenue when one of the pipelines broke and the water down, was it Homestead, to the graveyard, did a lot of damage to the walls. They had to use rowboats in the 90s in order to get those people from out of those homes. So I'm trying to figure out the purpose of the consultants for $500,000 when the president is 100% correct. We have people in public works, I know, and I watched the ranks. You have who started out as an instrumental technician, same here. He's now the plant operator. So it is being passed on. I would think that you would first give first consideration to those people who was already working there. I'm certainly hoping that you are not placing in mind to subcontract the water department to where you're right, you have ownership, but you have a company that's coming in and downsizing city employees. I mean, they're the backbone of the city, they pay their taxes. They don't need that kind of treatment anymore, Mr. Child.
Yeah.
I'm speaking on experience. I've been there. As I was saying to you earlier, I know, I mean, like I said, I know where the bones are buried. I was there when they had all that grass up there at Montebello, worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and now they're done disappeared. I was there when the guys up there was taking some of that stuff down to those places where they sell copper and stuff like that. And had they not got there, the city not got there an hour early, that copper would have disappeared. They only got a little taste of it. There was chunks, I mean, tons that weighed tons, and it disappeared. That still bothers me. I mean, we're talking about hiring these consultants and stuff like that, and all that money that was up there and all that hidden talent. I would hope that you would reconsider this.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Branch. I am going to ask now that the Ask Me panel that is before us spend some time, the next few minutes, presenting as they will. I would ask, is there a lead person on the panel? Is there a lead? Well, there are 5 members, and I would ask in any order that you wish to go that you would introduce yourselves to us and any entity other than ASME that you may represent, and then proceed to give your presentation, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Use the microphone, please, Doc.
Yes, honorable panel and brother chair. I'm speaking from the perspective of a resident, and I have worked along with ASME. My name is Dr. Alvin C. Hathaway. I'm a resident of Ashburton, and I'm the senior pastor of Union Baptist Church. I just believe I'm speaking specifically about HomeServe. When we received that letter, and I'm a homeowner, it was somewhat frightening. It was a letter that appeared to be an official action of Baltimore City, but there was no advance notice. It suggested that we should purchase this warranty insurance because there was a inference that we could possibly have broken water pipes in our properties. There was no testing of the pipes. There was nothing to alert us that that was such a condition, and so it was somewhat frightening. What I did, quite honestly, I mailed to the HomeServe just out of a reaction. I looked and I saw Mr. Chow's name on the letter. I looked and saw the logo of the city of Baltimore, and I mailed to the HomeServe $74. That was just out of fear. Then when I began to use rational minds and began to ask persons around, and I looked and saw the Baltimore County executive suggest that his residents of Baltimore County should not purchase that, and that that county had the capacity to provide services to its residents, I then called HomeServe and canceled that check. I just wonder why the city of Baltimore would endorse a letter from a private company without any private hearing on the matter or any, now I'm hearing that they said they had an RFP process, but the residents of the city were not aware of that. They were not aware that this was a need. They weren't aware that this was the best price for a deficient service. I just think that that question why sits and looms very large. I mean, we have other things that suggest that this company, HomeServe, is a part of a multi-national company. And when you begin to explore it, you even trace it and see that there is a relationship between HomeServe and Veolia that's in France. I mean, so you wonder what's happening. Why are we now having this multi-pronged approach to our water system? I just believe that this committee, Baltimore City Council, should just examine very closely the corporate structure of HomeServe. You should investigate its actions in other jurisdictions. You can clearly look and see, and that's the beauty about Google. You know, you can just Google and you can just get the information you need. If you look at their relationship in Kentucky, you look at the experiences that they've had in Ohio, you look at their experiences in Alabama, and of course Massachusetts was also identified. I just think it raises questions, and I'm hearing that Mr. Chow indicate that he had vetted the company, but I wonder, was it a very close comb and close vet of that company to ensure that its services to us would be of an impeccable order? I just think that there is a feeling, and I want to just be honest, that Baltimore City government should be our ally. They should be the entity that we trust. They should be the entity that we look to for guidance, and they shouldn't be in an adversarial kind of relationship with us. Nor should we have any feelings that the city government is not acting for the best of public interest. And I would suggest to you that we in the community are burdened with the increases in payments, and this warranty, as he calls it, is another tax. I mean, it's a tax that when you pay it, it never stops. It only increases. You have no assurance or really no sense that the pipes are going to break or something's going to happen. I remember in my experience when we had Hurricane Agnes, and folks in the Gwynns Falls area and Baker Street were basically riding around in boats. We were there in Mondawmin. Then you had all of the storm drains completed. Then all of the services for the homes were done. You know, why now do we find ourselves having to possibly pay as homeowners and property owners for some potential or some possible for unforeseen hazard that may or may not occur? I just think that this committee should thoroughly investigate the relationship that the Baltimore City government has with HomeServe. And I think it should let us know exactly what that relationship is. And what I would ask in closing is that if the Baltimore County Executive could propose another alternative, why shouldn't we as a city also explore other alternatives than to a HomeServe warranty insurance program?
Thank you, Pastor. Very. Are there any comments or questions from the council?
If I may, could I add one more?
Of course, as a Baptist preacher, you.
Thank you. You know that.
You know there's always
I gotta
one
close.
more. Amen.
Our church is located in Upton. The homeowners there are really tasked with improvements, with all of the things. I just wonder, when you look at this 11,820 persons that they indicate have signed up, what zip codes do they come from? Because I would suggest to you that the low-income residents and homeowners that are severely stressed with water bills and et cetera are not the ones that are most vulnerable, are not the ones that will be able to provide it. And we need government to protect us. We don't need a company, private company, to protect us. We need government to protect us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Erin Diaz, and I'm a campaign director with Corporate Accountability International.
Let me do a sound check. Can everyone hear? No. You're going to have to bring it closer and speak louder, please.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Erin Diaz, and I'm a campaign director with Corporate Accountability International, a membership-based organization with many members here in Baltimore. For the past 37 years, we've partnered with people, governments, and institutions such as the World Health Organization to protect public health, human rights, and the environment from corporate abuses. And as part of our water campaign, we monitor the practices of private water corporations, including Veolia, globally, and partner with public officials to ensure the long-term sustainability of our public water systems. I want to thank you so much for hearing the community's concerns today regarding the proposed water contract, for which transnational water privatizer Veolia currently appears to be the front runner. We've heard from Mr. Chow that the city hopes to offset rate hikes, yet Veolia's track record is littered with rate hikes, as well as labor abuses, water quality violations, poor performance and failed contracts, and saddling cities with millions in additional costs. Indianapolis, for example, spent $29 million to terminate its contract with Veolia in 2010. During its tenure with the city, non-union employee benefits were cut, a federal grand jury investigated Veolia's alleged falsified water quality reports, and a class action lawsuit was filed to address Veolia's alleged overbilling of residents. Gladewater, Texas also ended its contract in 2012 after a decade of problems that left residents with an under and improperly staffed water plant and some with brown water flowing from their taps. And these are just a few examples that help explain the wave of cities around the globe taking back their water systems from private water corporations, including Veolia. Because of this, Veolia has implemented new strategies to make itself more palatable to city officials, including a contract model called Peer Performance Solutions, or PPS. And through Maryland Public Information Act requests, Corporate Accountability International learned that indeed PPS is the model Veolia is proposing in Baltimore. In this model, Veolia would have a role in determining how Baltimore's water system will be operated and managed. PPS involves revenue sharing, where Veolia is paid a percentage of any savings it helps to generate. This creates an incentive for Veolia to recommend changes that cut costs, but could undermine the long-term sustainable management of Baltimore's water system. Just last year in St. Louis, Veolia attempted but failed to secure a similar PPS contract. Analysis by Great Rivers Environmental Law Center, which is a Missouri-based public interest law group, found that the proposed contract included multiple phases, beginning with consulting and opening the door to implementation and privatization. As you all know, the devil is often in the details of legal contracts, and Veolia has a track record of bending those details in its favor. Veolia structured its PPS contract in Pittsburgh to be paid 3 times for performing the same consulting services. Veolia also renegotiates contracts to extract additional profit. In Indianapolis, for example, Veolia renegotiated its contract from 2002 to 2006 outside of the eye of Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to obtain an additional $5 million to compensate the corporation for, quote, past unexpected expenses. Veolia also has a history of interfering with the political process through lobbying, political contributions, misleading PR, and negotiating contracts without transparency. In St. Louis, Veolia hired a well-connected lobbyist to influence decision makers, issued newsletters to the Board of Aldermen, and testified at public hearings to give the impression of local support for its contract. But hundreds of concerned residents voiced opposition for nearly a year, and ultimately the city's legislative body, the Board of Aldermen, played a critical role ensuring the contract did not move forward. And here in Baltimore, the Public Information Act request documents we obtained demonstrate that Veolia has been in talks with the city about a contract since at least May of 2013. Veolia is also a corporate sponsor of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and an advisory board member of the Mayor's Water Council, which Mayor Rawlings Blake co-chairs. Veolia has also given the mayor thousands of dollars in political contributions. Safeguards should be established prior to any vote on this contract to protect against any potential conflicts of interest. Honorable members of the City Council, Baltimore's water system is too essential to public health and the local economy to enter any form of contract with Veolia. So I urge you to continue to take actions to ensure transparency around this contract process and to ensure no contract with Veolia moves forward against the will of the people of Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any comments, questions from the members? Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Mary Grant. I'm a researcher for Food and Water Watch, a consumer advocacy organization that supports the responsible public operation of water and sewer systems. We're part of the One Baltimore United. I work in our Baltimore office, and I'm city resident. I actually live in District 12, so I would like to thank Councilmember Carl Stokes for holding this hearing. This is a special hearing that wouldn't have occurred without the support of the City Council. Every week, decisions about city services are being made without adequate opportunity for public input. Both the home service arrangement and the proposed consulting contract demonstrate that the city needs serious changes to its contracting process.
Just a moment, I'm sorry. Again, the room is not great with acoustics. If you could speak louder.
Yeah.
Both
the home serve arrangement
and slower.
Okay.
Please. Thank you.
Both the home serve arrangement and the proposed consulting contract demonstrate that the city needs serious changes to its consulting process. contracting process to give the public a real voice in big decisions that affect our essential public services. The home service arrangement shows that the Department of Public Works needs to improve its customer outreach and education about key contract. The city has endorsed a private company called Home Service that offers service agreements with individual homeowners to repair water and sewer lines on their property in certain circumstances for a monthly fee. Homeowners receive letters in the mail offering this service. The mayor's administration allowed the company to use the city's letterhead, which make these private solicitations seem like official city correspondence, prompting confusion among many homeowners. There are at least 6 common misconceptions about this arrangement, some of which we heard tonight, but that DPW needs to clarify in concise, clear language that is sent to all residential water customers who receive the home service letters. 1, it is optional. People don't have to enroll in it. 2, it's a service contract, not an insurance plan. 3, some homeowners' insurance plans may already cover the same repairs. You need to check your policy before enrolling. 4, the water service line plan covers only the pipeline from the curb to the house, not the piping in a house. 5, it does not cover pre-existing breaks and clogs. 6, it does not cover breaks and clogs that result from flooding, other natural disasters, and other circumstances deemed unusual. There are many remaining questions about the arrangement. Does DPW know how many households experience service line breaks every year? If it doesn't have the facts and statistics, how can it responsibly encourage households to enroll in a private service contract? Further, has DPW studied whether it could provide a similar service in-house? The city has also provided insufficient information about the proposed consulting deal to study the water plans. DPW says that it wants to reduce operating costs. And no one's saying that the city shouldn't optimize things like backwash volumes and other functions. But the public is rightfully concerned about how DPW and the mayor's administration are going about the study. The process has been shrouded in secrecy. We still don't know when the Board of Estimates will vote on the deal and what the contract might look like. The heart of the issue is, why does the city want to bring in a major water privatizer? The city received only 2 bids for the study, and Veolia Water, the largest water company in the world and the largest operator of government systems in the United States, is the apparent frontrunner. DPW should not expect a major water privatizer to act in the city's long-term interest. I've studied how water privatization has affected communities across the country. In many cases, private operators will seek to line their pockets by skimping on maintenance, leading to greater replacement costs down the line. And often by downsizing the workforce, which slows responses to customer service requests and even emergencies. DPW should not adopt the corner-cutting practices of water privatizers. The mayor's administration says that it has no plans to privatize the system now, but there is no guarantee that it will not seek to privatize or outsource operations in the future. Just like the home serve deal and the consulting contract, this would happen with limited public knowledge and input. The 5 members on the Board of Estimates, 2 of whom aren't even elected, make all contracting decisions for the city. There are no required public hearings, nor are there real opportunities for the public to review and comment on a contract before it is signed. There is very little transparency and accountability in city contracting, even for deals that could affect the quality and affordability of our water service. DPW should explore how the city can keep boosting its in-house expertise to become a model of public sector provision for the region. Greater intra- and intergovernmental coordination can improve service quality and help mitigate rate increases for households and local businesses. Instead of bringing in a major water privatizer, the city could work with other public sector entities to share best practices. These public-public partnerships have lower transaction costs, and they are more effective, efficient, and equitable than deals with private for-profit companies. Responsible public provision with transparent and accountable governance is the best way to ensure that every Baltimore resident has access to safe and affordable water service. Water is simply too important for public health and well-being to transfer any control to private interests. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilmember Costello has a question for Ms. McNally Diaz.
Actually, first one is for home serve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I heard you mention 6 things that should have been included in the communication from DPW, and I would acknowledge that at least 5 of them are not included. The first one, that the service is optional, is included. But then later on, you mentioned that the city should take a step back and reassess this whole program altogether. So what is your suggested recommendation here? Is it to have an additional communication to residents, or is it to the latter, take a step back?
I think it can do both. It certainly should, at least in the interim, inform residents about the program with a more clear facts. They do have a facts, but it's very dense and it's not very clear for residents to understand what it's talking about. Just bullet points, simple, clear, concise information about what the plan is and what it covers. It should also explore how it can provide this in-house, if it can use its existing resources to provide the same service, potentially accessing some of the economies of scale as it already is making a lot of water main repairs in the city.
And I guess I have a follow-up question to that response for Mr. Chow. I have a follow-up in response to that. So is providing, as you mentioned, leveraging economies of scale to be able to provide some type of similar service like this to citizens, is that something that DPW would normally do, or is that something that's usually contracted out?
First of all, we are a public agency. We are prohibited to do any on-site plumbing type of related work. That's master plumber's work. That's why there's a master plumber for private service lines and internal plumbing work up to the curb box or up to the meter in our case. We are public sector agencies. We are prohibited working on. So in the case of Baltimore County, for example, they will be contracting out to a master plumber to come in to make the repair, and then charge the county resident 5% interest compounded over time, so the county citizen is going to pay for that service regardless.
Okay, and then one more follow-up, Mr. Chow. So sending out another communication to residents or property owners, clarifying some of the 6 things that you mentioned, is that something that DPW could do?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something, I have my communication chief here, and he's taking extensive notes. And we certainly are going to take a lot of good suggestions back, because we recognize we can never talk more than enough or communicate enough to our citizens there, and so we'll do additional outreach. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chow. And then a question for you. So is your suggested recommendation that DPW or the city not select Veolia at all, or is it?
All right, listen. First of all,
that was just the first part of my question. Option A, not select Veolia at all, or is it that the city should not select someone through the RFP process to provide these consulting services, as Mr. Chow laid out?
Yeah, certainly not to.
Said yes to an A or B question, an or.
Not to select Veolia, absolutely, and certainly to consider, as other panelists are speaking to, the ability to improve efficiencies in-house and use in-house expertise and the knowledge of the public sector.
So just to confirm on the second part about not selecting a contractor, it sounds like you're not taking a position, but rather suggesting that DPW should assess its in-house capabilities before making a determination. Did I get that correct?
That DPW should absolutely consider doing this in-house. Cities across the country have been able to, and already it seems from Mr. Chow's testimony, Baltimore has made enormous strides in improving its water system in-house over the years and can now continue to do so by going in-house.
Right. Let me respectfully, this is a hearing, not a rally. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just ask, it's going out over the air. Sometimes that sort of reaction interferes with the sound quality that's going out. Again, I ask respectfully, that we conduct this as the hearing as opposed to other aspects of the rally. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what your sentiments are, but I'd ask for that. Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Cohen?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This testimony is from Saniplan to call attention to Veolia's track record both here in the USA and in its native France.
Mr. Cohen, I recognize you, but would you, for the benefit of us,
What?
tell us who you
I'm
are
about to
and
get to
your
that.
representation?
I'm Art Cohen, longtime resident Baltimore City, and in 2001, I convened Saniplan to help improve water and sanitation services in cities. Over at least the past 130 years, water and sewer services have increasingly been considered public responsibilities to be provided by government. However, in recent years, all around the USA and in the larger world, Veolia and other corporations, all private businesses, have attempted and succeeded in getting some cities and towns to contract out, turn over the operation of their public water utility services to them. This represents the privatization of public services. It has often been called a public-private partnership. However, these private businesses do not exist to provide public services. They exist primarily to make a profit. With time, either private companies may not have found these contracts to be profitable enough, or the municipal, city, or town authorities have found the private service to be inadequate or as harmful to labor conditions. When this has happened, the privatized public services may become remunicipalized. I know that's a big 8-syllable word, but it basically means that the public municipalities, the cities and towns, reclaim their water and sewer services as public utilities, once again to be operated, maintained, improved, and expanded only publicly. Recently, the growing number of such remunicipalizations represents a substantial indication of the failure of multinational and other private business organizations to effectively provide these public services. The Transnational Institute, which studies this in Europe, puts it this way: remunicipalization shows that the public sector can outperform the private sector and can be an effective water provider anywhere in the world. Another source says cities, regions, and countries worldwide are increasingly choosing to close the book on water privatization and to remunicipalize services by taking back public control over water and sanitation management. In many cases, this is a response to the false promises of private operators and their failure to put the needs of communities before profit. So, let me finish up here by just saying, let's look at Veolia's track record on remunicipalization. First, as of 2012, Veolia had privatization contracts with 156 local governments in the USA. Second, in 8 years, between 2005 and 2013 in the USA, Veolia-run systems were remunicipalized, that is, taken back from them, in 25 cities and towns in 12 states. And finally, in the 12 years between 2002 and 2014, Veolia-run systems were remunicipalized in 27 cities or towns located in its own native France, including Paris. So I want to say and support what has been suggested here by Councilman Young and Branch about looking for this expertise in-house, not having to go outside to improve the efficiencies of the water department. And I'll have copies of this available for any of you afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Are there any comments from the panel? No. I would ask, we have one other gentleman, but I would ask that all members of the panel please give us a copy of your testimony. Thank you to Ms. Coates. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Houlihan. I'm a policy analyst with the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, more popularly known as AFSCME. I'm out of their office in Washington, D.C. I'm currently working with AFSCME Council 67 on this matter that's before you, and over my almost 30-year career now with AFSCME, have regularly assisted our locals in the water and wastewater industry. In fact, it was the RFP was brought to my attention early on, and I brought it to the attention of Council 67. And I was struck by it when I looked at it was if you've read the scope of work in it, it's very short actually for and sort of broad. One would immediately, if I was a worker in this particular enterprise, I could understand why I would be, it'd be obvious to me why I'd be concerned about the study, who would do it, and how it would be undertaken. Within the overall focus of the scope of work, there's a lot of talk about efficiency, which is we all want to have well-run, efficient, sustainable, world-class facilities. Who wouldn't want to work in such a place, right? That's what we're all about. That's where we spend our careers. But in it, there's key words that over the years, I've read a lot of these, I know it's been around this industry. There's efficiency calls for recommendations on labor's efficiencies and labor practices. So if you're from a union's perspective or worker perspective, that's going to catch your attention immediately. Not to speak of the implications that Mr. Chow talked about. There's a lot of automation and change going on in this industry, and what are the long-term implications for the existing workforce, whether it be opportunities or maybe there's going to be skills that are obsolete, and there's going to be how do we deal with transitions to new technologies. These are all critical issues to a worker in the facility. Obviously, some workers are going to be close to retirement in the facility. They'll have one set of concerns. Other workers are going to be younger. In particular, we had a concern in that we didn't hear from the city about this RFP, by the way, or this RFQ. By the way, Mr. Middleton or whoever the city would communicate with, we have this vision for the utility, and it's a long-term vision, and we're going to have some changes, and there's real opportunities here, and we're going to put out this RFQ. What do you think about it? That's not how we heard about it. We heard about it because it was presented to us after it had been in the newspaper. And without this and as I understand it, since that point, while there have been some broad discussions about some narrow areas around training with the mass meetings, and there may have been a few informal conversations, there's been no formal discussions with the union as a representative of the workers about this particular RFQ, what its goals were, why it's there, or the longer-term vision of the utility in the areas, particularly as it affects the people that we represent. Thousands of AFSCME members have dedicated their working lives to providing effective water and wastewater services in municipalities across the country. Identifying, implementing changes in operating practices with the goals of improving services and containing costs is common in these organizations. When they are invited, the union and our members have actively participated in improvement programs. In many cities the size of Baltimore or larger, particularly some of them in instances as described here where there was a large investment in capital improvements to be made. That just seems like when you have that kind of resources, that kind of change, it lends an opportunity to bring the union as a partner in the beginning of the process, not after the decisions are already made. We share the council president's belief that the most effective way to achieve these goals are through joint labor management efforts with which respect the collective bargaining process. I mean, I would be negligent if I didn't mention here, as many of you probably already know, that we have an open contract here in Baltimore. So this is obviously of a concern as well when you're proposing these kinds of changes and we don't have a collective bargaining agreement. Take it from a worker's perspective. Where's my protections? Where's the conversation going? This is obviously a topic that creative minds, of which I'm sure there are in both labor and management here in the city, might find could come up in the collective bargaining process, as it has in other cities. One model which has been used in these water and wastewater utilities and in other fields over the years is to create these joint labor management committees to guide the improvement effort. These have ranged from one-time efforts to address a specific problem, maybe very, very short-term, very narrowly focused. And on the other extreme, there are some utilities where the labor management relationship is such that it's no longer a program, it's just the way they do things. There's just a level of consultation which is rather extraordinary. One of the places that this has occurred in the past, and Mr. Chow will be familiar with, we did have some variation of this at WSSC when he was the leader there, and AFSCME participated in one aspect of this regarding the setting up of classifications and things. It's not also unusual here in Baltimore. Some years ago, I've been with the union a long time, there was an evaluation of the solid waste department here in Baltimore, and I participated as an outside technical expert and assistant to that, where there was very talented management or well, they were the non-union members. They were young engineers. A young engineer that was on the team, and then we had our rank and file workers on the team. And the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service provided some consultation and guidance on the process. And we came out with a report that we then presented to the department director. Now, that process is different than what's been proposed, but I hope that some consideration after the testimony tonight will there'll be more thought out by the management of the department about doing that. Particularly from what I heard, there seems like some real opportunities there that we have a better idea of what the range of interest is that leading to the proposal of this study. I want to just conclude with one observation. There's an old joke that a consultant is someone who borrows your watch and then tells you what time it is. Veolia has a consulting contract in New York, aspects which are similar to what's being sought here. When I asked our AFSCME New York City utility leadership, meaning the leadership or rank and file leadership in that area, about their experience with the contract, their response was the same I heard independently from a former New York City senior official familiar with the arrangement. The company took our ideas and then turn around and charge the city for them. In conclusion, I recommend the Bureau shelve this RFQ, shift the focus and resources to improvement efforts drawing upon city staff expertise through a form of labor management cooperation initiative. Given that there's an open negotiations right now going on, and there is obviously dialogue, and we know that dialogue is the first step in a kind of a process and achieving goals together, that maybe that's a place to start to have the conversation carry on from tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything from the committee, the panel, Mr. President?
Thank you. You brought up an interesting fact in retraining of employees. I know that the city do have an internship program. We still have that, right, Mr. Chow? So there are going to be opportunities for our workers to, there will be opportunities for our workers to be retrained. And I know that there's a certification process that they've been speaking of. So I'm hoping that we will be able to get our workers into some type of course so that they can be prepared for the certification process. I know some people are not good test takers, but orally they can do an oral exam. So hopefully we can look outside of the box to make sure that our employees are given every opportunity to keep their jobs and not to be forced out because they can't meet a certification process. Because I'm still under the impression that because you're certified does not mean that you're qualified.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right.
I'm sorry. And I have one question for Mr. Chow. With the home warranty service, is there any markup in that price? Because, you know, if I have a company and I'm doing warranty services, I want to make sure that I'm not losing any money, and I want to make sure that there's a profit that I can make. So therefore, I mark up my price so that I won't be taking a loss, but actually I'll be taking a gain. Are you aware if
No.
there's any markup?
No, not as I know of. I mean, we as a city not getting any kind of administrative fees
I know
or
we're
anything
not,
like that. That's
but
right.
I was wondering if the warranty company is giving us the best price, or is it a price based on their markup?
Well, obviously, you know, for their business model is more people sign up, that we create a bigger pool, and then looking at the failure rates, hopefully not everybody's service line fails at the same time. But, you know, it is that type of business model.
Mr. Councilman Branch?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Child, I just want, is this survey,
RFP?
are we really thinking of actually one day contracting the water department out to someone like Viola? And the reason why I ask is because when I started 30 years ago, the Department of Public Works consists of 4 bureaus. You had the Bureau of Transportation, which is no longer part of Public Works. Now they're their own entity. You had General Service, which is no longer part of Public Works. If we contract water and wastewater out, then the only thing Public Works have to oversee is solid waste. And I've been a long-time employee of the city of Baltimore, and I would love to see my kids and everybody else come through the city of Baltimore and work. I'll be up front and I'll give you my vote right up front. I cannot support this bill.
So let,
and that's no disrespect for you. I have a lot of respect for you. You know that.
Sure.
I think you've done wonders. When you was the Bureau Head of Water and Wastewater in East Baltimore. But as a longtime city employee, that job helped put food on the table for my family and benefits, and I cannot afford to see.
So let me repeat what I said earlier in my testimony. My intent is for the water system to stay in the hands of the public sector, because that public sector is not motivated by profit. Our focus is on saving the environment as well as the safe and well-being of our citizens. However, we do intend to acquire the experiences, the creativities, and knowledge of private sector so we can have the best of both worlds. And so let me repeat again. DPW is not interested in contracting out or selling our water system. And then at the same time, this contract is under evaluation. That's why I've been withholding back my comments about any vendor who participated in all that, because it's inappropriate for me to address those at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Chow, before you sit down, two things. One is, you did mention earlier that you think as of this date, the citizens have saved $100,000 or so?
Well, basically, the repairs thus far has cost about $140,000.
Okay.
So the company, HomeServe, has already paid out $140,000
Okay.
to those individual accounts.
Gotcha. And that's versus what earnings you think at this point for the company?
Well, I don't know. I know they got, 18,000. Thus far has 11,820 sort of residents, homes has signed up. Now, whether they're paying on a monthly basis or they pay as a one-time annual fee.
$6 a month, right?
Yeah.
Times that 11.8.
About 80,000.
In the second, thank you, sir. That's our accountant just come on board. Is there a phase 2 of this in terms of the implementation? Would the consultant be involved in the implementation of its recommendations?
You're talking about the RFP itself? Well, first of all, we are really only talking about one phase right now with this particular RFP. RFP is for them to come in, for example, interview the rank and files. Certainly the folks working in the fields will be the target audience, because as we all know, many of the great ideas comes from those folks in the front line. And we certainly treasure those inputs. So that's the first part of it, is through the interview process, understanding our operations, make suggestions. that does not lead to action. They make suggestion to myself. From there, we can determine whether to adopt any or none or all subsequently. And of course, some ideas, as we look at it, some idea may suggest that we do have internal expertise, then that it does make sense for us to use our own folks internally rather than contracting out. So those are the things, but the first phase is for them to identify for us where are the efficiency gains that can be obtained, and to basically ultimately help reduce long-term water rate increases. This is what it's all about. I know we got billions of dollars of investment we must do, and we don't have the revenue to do it in the time that we need to do it, so we have to be smart. And that's what I'm saying, that no, this is the two-pronged approach. We're going to ask them for reasonable rate increases. However, the only way we can do that is through through efficiency gains to help reduce our expenditures. I mean, that's just smart business practices.
We got you. It would just be very unusual for a consultant to not write themselves a job into the next phase. That's usual practice, frankly.
But they haven't been dealing with me regularly either.
We'll be watching, sir. Mr. Costello, Councilman Costello, Mr. Chow, sorry. And then we need to open it to the rest of the public, please. Thank you.
The fifth of 5 bullet points under the scope of work in the RFP indicates that the consultant will prepare a report summarizing findings and present analysis and recommendations to DPW. Can you describe the scope of those recommendations, whether it will be just rates or whether it will include policy changes at DPW or some type of infrastructure improvements by way of capital improvement?
I mean, it could be multiple facets. We have multiple sort of initiative going on. And so, for example, we are also looking at the way we structure, making sure that we can minimize the multiple handoffs, making sure we have a true alignment in terms of providing that service. So therefore, when it touches on those aspects of it, we're going to say, well, we're already working on it. There's something that you don't need to touch. But treatment plants itself, I'm more interested in the way we operate. As we know, operating a wastewater plant and water plant is basically acquired and requires a use of a lot of electricity, a lot of energies. So we want to make sure we run those energy grids smartly. And then, for example, may even looking at are there to a way that we can, as we know, we have digester. So is there appropriate for us to sell electricity back? What is the smartest way of making sure we can keep the cost down? And the second thing that we're going to be focusing is chemical dosing. Wastewater requires quite a bit of chemical dosing. One of the ingredients that ENR requires is methanol. Methanol, as I stated earlier in my testimony 30 years ago when I started up the new BNR plant with WSSC, I was the first one in the state basically getting to use of methanol as a carbon source. And that is a commodity. You got to be very smart. You got to be able to negotiate and on a day-to-day basis. But without methanol, we're not going to succeed in ENR process. So we got to make sure we operate in the most optimum efficiency where it requires the lowest amount of chemical needs, because that's where the cost is going to be. The most cost is electricity and chemical.
Thank you, Mr. Chow. And just to reiterate what Chairman Stokes said, and this is completely independent of Veolia or this situation, I think that any consultant conducting a study with recommendations that consultant would subsequently implement is an inherent conflict of interest, and perhaps some of my more experienced colleagues can educate me on procurement guidelines and regulations for the city. But I certainly would hope that there's some kind of fail-safe in those guidelines and regulations to prevent that from happening. And again, that's completely independent of Veolia this situation or DPW, and please don't take that as being directed at you, Mr. Chow.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chow. We appreciate your service. Would the following four persons please come in this order to present to the committee? Betty Robinson, Kim Trueheart, Lee Patterson, David Carroll. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to be brief because it's getting late, and a lot of the things that I would have said have been said, so I'm going to be to the point. First, my name is Betty Robinson, and I do appreciate the possibility of testifying at this hearing. I'm a big advocate of Baltimore City water. I have to say, when I travel and people say, oh, we can't drink our water, I say, we have clean water, we have healthy water, and every year I look at the DPW water quality report, so I know that our water meets or exceeds all the federal drinking water standards. My concern today is privatization seems to be afoot in the country. So all of these private corporations, and I've read up about Veolia and how it's being kind of basically kicked to the curb in its own country, France, and in Europe, and so now they're working in the U.S. to try to get water systems, et cetera, and other services. But when we as a city, and I understand that we as a city at some point may need to hire consulting companies, but I think it's incumbent upon us to look at the practices of that company, those companies. What's their labor practices? What's their stance on unions? How do they handle minority and women employees? And I don't even want to talk about minority in Baltimore City because the African American community is the majority. So what are their policies around hiring people of color? And are they bringing in a pool of people who will represent underserved communities of color, et cetera? So I want us to look at how do these consulting companies treat the environment. What is their track record with their profit? Do they take their profit and run? Do they falsify the water quality as the Veolia people did in Indianapolis? So I'm very concerned, and I'm hoping that the council will think through any consulting contract, and hopefully the Board of Estimates does the same thing. What is the track record? We all know if we read that privatization has helped to increase the racial and class inequality in our country, and that's something that we all need to be concerned about as well. So I worry about this slippery slope, and I'm glad people have spoken about it, where Veolia and Councilman Costello, I have to applaud him, he's new on the council, and I thought he made a really good point about the procurement policies and how do we manage that. I also wanted to say something about HomeServe. Okay, I'm a homeowner. I've been a homeowner for a long time. I did not get anything from HomeServe. I did not get a postcard. This is a postcard that my neighbor got. She never got a packet. She just got a postcard. I called HomeServe to find out because I've had some sewer backup in my house. So I called HomeServe to find out why I didn't get something, and they said, well, we don't know. And then she asked me the questions, and she said, you're eligible for the service. So then she's saying to me, I'm saying, well, what does it cover? So she's saying, well, go to this website, and you can read what it covers. So, okay, suppose I'm a senior who doesn't have internet connection or doesn't have that time, even if I'm not a senior, and I don't have that time to kind of read up on this thing to know whether I'm dumping my money into a hole or not. I am concerned because my pipes are a mess in my front yard. And actually, I stumbled when I was looking to see what plumbers they would hire, because they wouldn't tell me that when I called them. And they're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and in Norwalk, Connecticut. And again, this is why can't we hire local? Why can't we find ways to build the capacity of our own residents and citizens in all of these cases? But just to go back to HomeServe, they said that I'm eligible. They asked me all the questions. I'm eligible. So then I have to go to the DPW website or this BaltimoreRepairService.com website to sign up for their insurance. Again, without reading hundreds of pages of documents, I would like to have insurance because my pipes are a mess. But I don't know if I should do it or not. And so I'm glad for the hearing to hear all of the, and I actually had stumbled upon this fine in the United Kingdom, $51 million. It was 43 million pounds, but with a discount from the Financial Conduct Authority, they were fined 30 million pounds, which is $51 million, for terrible customer service, for not treating their customers fairly, so that was the reason for the fine. So then I'm like, well, do I want to sign up with this company or not? So I'm wondering, why did the city not do due diligence to learn what kind of a company? And that's kind of my overall message. If we're going to hire a contractor, a consultant, we've got to find out what their practices are across the board. And I'll just give the mic up to somebody else.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Trueheart.
Good evening. My name is Kim Trueheart, and I'm a resident of Baltimore, city that I was born in and love. And for clarification, unlike the police department, this council can tell DPW what to do legally. So I've got a list of things you need to tell them to do. First thing is, when this RFP went out, they listed a pre-bidders conference, which I informed the council president about, and I attended that pre-bidders conference, only one in the room from the citizenry, and I asked specifically about what the selection criteria would be, and I was told we're still developing that, okay? I never really got a good answer about what the selection criteria was for the vendor that they were selecting. Then, when the bids actually were submitted, they were submitted in a fashion that circumvented the typical Wednesday 12 noon bid opening process, which I attend weekly. So the bids didn't come in such that I, as a citizen, could look at, okay, and they've still not been made available to the public to review, like every other bid that comes into this city, which those two things alone lead me to believe that there's something shady going on here. So I don't understand why we have this lack of transparency in this one particular purchase. It makes no sense to me. However, I'm going to add some context to that. You know, the U.S. Conference of Mayors published a report a little over a year ago. And surprisingly, our mayor didn't sign on to this report. And this report said, and it was basically a cautionary report that said, water infrastructure improvements are going to kill the low income and poor people of America. Okay. It said it is going to unduly burden the residents of our urban centers who are poor and economically disadvantaged, and that the mayors of America need to be concerned about the impact of these infrastructure improvements, which we all know are necessary, but be concerned enough about the citizens who are directly impacted in your decision making. Now, I've come before this body on numerous occasions talking about Ordinance 941. Now, that's the underlying problem here that nobody wants to talk about. Ordinance 941 set up the Waste and Water Enterprise Fund. And that enterprise fund basically says that whatever DPW wants to improve and buy or outsource, that the ratepayer has to be responsible for paying for that project. And that they get to pick the projects. We don't even get to pick them. We don't even get to hear about them. And they roll out these new projects one after another. And then they send us the bill every quarter in our water bill. No money out of the general fund goes into this enterprise fund. Why? Because y'all passed a law that said the ratepayer is going to pay for everything that they want to do, whenever they want to do it. And therefore, every year, at the beginning of the year, they come to us and they say, we need more money. And therefore, we're going to raise the rates again. Now, y'all sit here and let this happen. You don't hold hearings when it's timely. You don't hold conversations to try to defend us. You know, if this utility is about serving the citizens, then serve them in an affordable way. Because right now, it's not affordable. This is killing the citizenry of Baltimore, especially the low income and the poor. And you need to stop allowing that behavior to occur. Yes, I want the best water system in America, but there has to be a limit on the price, because it is not an unlimited paycheck that this guy has, checkbook. It is not. There is a limit. But right now, he's operating as though there is no limit. Anytime he wants more, he just comes and asks for it. And what do? You approve it. It's got to stop. As far as I'm concerned, repeal Ordinance 941. Let's start there. Then you start telling him how to prioritize his list of 1,400 projects that he has, his wish list, and which we can afford and which we can't afford. Because somebody has to provide some adult supervision of this process. So at some point, you need to be concerned about us. And I appreciate that the union folks are here en masse and they've rallied behind this issue because it's also about jobs, okay? But first and foremost, deal with the fact that the citizens can't afford any more rate increases on our water bill. I'm working with a woman right now whose water's been off for 5 years because she can't afford it. And there's a whole bunch of other folks in this city just like her. But there seems to be no discussion about the impact on the ratepayer of all of these really nice projects. Okay, now when it comes to Veolia, okay, they need to be disbarred. They need to be put on, we will not contract with you list. They're foul, they're obnoxious, okay? God didn't put water on this earth for folks to make profit off of it. God gave us water because he knew it was sustaining. It is part of life. It is just like the air we breathe. And you start allowing folks to make profit off of water, then you are wrong. You will be voted out of office. I assure you of that. Okay, so now the things you're going to tell them to do, because you have authority to do it, is repeal Ordinance 941. You're going to look at their list of prioritization of the 1,400 projects and determine which we can afford and which we can't afford right now. And until y'all get jobs for people, you cannot keep raising the rates, okay? So, like, think about us for once. Think about us. And I appreciate that the union is writing you checks and I'm not, okay, but I don't intend to write you a check, okay? The fact that they can get behind your campaign and support you, I can come with numbers of people, okay? And those numbers are probably more important than the numbers on the check. So right now, okay, you have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to the citizens of Baltimore City. This is outrageous. This is wrong, okay? Tell them, thirdly, to release the RFP bids that came in. There are 2 of them. I submitted a Freedom of Information request, and I was denied. I was told I could not see the proposals that came in. I can see every other proposal. Why can't I see these? Ask the man the question. When is he going to release the proposals that were submitted? I want to see what you're about to gouge me on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Anything from the panel? No? Mr. Patterson?
I'm speaking for the People's Power Assembly and the citizens of Baltimore to say that we don't want another Detroit in Baltimore. And that Veolia is a bunch of international criminals that should be chased out of this city and everywhere else. Because the fact of the matter is, everywhere else, every city is chasing them out. Why we gotta be stupid here in Baltimore? Veolia is no good for the people. They are corrupt, they are criminals, they're anti-people, they're anti-union, and we don't want them pigs in our city. The fact of the matter is, water is a human right. Water is a human right. What are we gonna be charged for, the air that we breathe next? It's insane. Talking about privatizing water, for goodness sakes. Profits are not before people. People come before profits. And we have to understand that and make that a logical situation and understanding in this country. It's obscene. The thought of Veolia is an obscenity. They are not human beings. They are just a money-grubbing, profit-making machine. They don't care about human life, don't care about humanity. And for them to be brought into the city of Baltimore will make the city a laughing stock. We do not need Veolia here. And more importantly, privatization of water is a madman's idea of democracy. What kind of democracy privatizes water? For crying out loud. We got to look at the facts as they really are for people. People need water. It's a human right, and that's all I got to say about it. People's human rights, water. We don't want no Detroit and Baltimore.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carroll?
I'm here representing Baltimore Fist youth group. And we strongly believe that the city should not hire a consultant from Veolia and really don't give them any money at all. Especially in light of all the evidence that we've heard tonight. We believe that this is a step towards privatizing Baltimore's water, regardless of what the city says about it. Water is a human right, not something that corporations should be allowed to make profit off of. And really, there's considerable doubt that Veolia could actually improve anything. They have a large history of complaints, as we've heard, and an incident that I read about that wasn't brought up is in 2011 in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, they were operating a publicly owned wastewater facility. It wasn't fully privatized. It was still owned by the municipal government, but they were operating it. And there was a catastrophic failure due to their negligence that killed 2 workers there. And that's exactly the kind of relationship that the city claims they want Veolia to be operating in Baltimore. But importantly, in Palestine, Veolia supports segregation and racism. They operate buses there, just like they do here in Baltimore. But there, the Palestinian people are not allowed to ride on these buses. Only Israelis are allowed to. And so this is really segregation and apartheid, and we believe this has no place in Baltimore City. So, in conclusion, we say no to privatization, no to racism, no to segregation, no, not a single dime for Veolia.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Anything from the committee? I don't have any other names that are checked off to testify per the sheets that are in my hand. Were there others who wish to testify? That's fine. Okay, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. I have the sheets, and those were the only persons who checked to testify. It's not a problem. So would all of those who wish to testify please stand? Okay, if you will form a line. I didn't realize there were so many, so I didn't ask people to stay within a time frame. But apologetically, now I do. I must, because the TV will close. So I'm going to ask everyone to speak to 2 minutes. And again, I apologize, but I did not, again, see any of the names that are standing checked off. That being the case, I'm just asking that respectfully that you each take no more than 2 minutes so that everyone has the opportunity to speak while the camera is still on. Thank you.
Good evening. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Jay Howard Henderson, President and CEO of the Greater Baltimore Urban League. I'm here today to express my heartfelt concern about the decisions that are about to be made here today, and understanding that they will have grave unintended consequences for the citizens of Baltimore and its residents. So I think it's important, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, as you deliberate on this issue, that you take all of this conversation that's been held today into consideration. I'm quite sure you will. I have my written testimony, so I will pass it out, so I won't take up a whole lot of time. But it's just important that we understand that Mr. Chow said the rumors are over-exaggerated about the sale and the privatization of the water system in Baltimore. I pray that they are, and I pray that as members of the council that you will hold him accountable to that statement. We in Baltimore do not need our water privatized, and we do not need to lose jobs because of privatization. We're losing jobs already because of privatization. And that takes away revenue from the city of Baltimore. These are Baltimore residents who are paying taxes in the city, and what more can we ask of them to do? They work hard every day, and then we're going to turn around and take their jobs away. I'm here in support of non-privatization of the water system. I have a long litany of issues with Veolia. They have already been stated. They're in my testimony here. So I want to thank you for the time that you've given me. And please, please, do take a deliberate approach to making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Carl Stokes and the rest of the panel. I think somebody lost a bunch of sheets of those of us who did sign up. I just want to say that. I'm here representing the People's Plan for Baltimore and also the People's Power Assembly. But part of our major concern is a plank that we have, which we feel that, as many people have already stated, that water is a human right. In fact, we feel that rates need to be rolled back and water should be free in this city, along with there should be absolutely no privatization. But I had a longer sheet of paper that I was going to read from. We will submit it to you, and because there's a lot of people who still want to speak, and I'll just raise a couple issues that weren't raised by others in terms of why we say not a single dime, not a single penny for Veolia. People have talked eloquently about some of their track record, but there's a couple things that are very close to home. This is a very anti-worker company. We were very active on the fight for justice for the super shuttle workers who work out of BWI and out of the other airports, Dulles and Reagan. It's a subsidiary of Veolia. They work under slave-like conditions, and maybe some of them are here that they'll testify about it. It's also a union-busting company. I just got back from Boston where they're trying to break the union, USW Local 8751, the school bus drivers union. They have fired 4 of their leaders in that union and have some of them up on trumped-up charges, and this is Veolia. I want to also say that in Boston, they are responsible. Veolia has taken out ads to resegregate the school system in Boston, which shows you the type of company that you're dealing with. And a lot of civil rights groups and school advocacy groups have gone on record opposing Veolia. So I'll just end with that. There's a lot more to be said, but I truly, honestly, am deeply convicted that the workers right here in this city, in-house, can do the job, and that we don't need to contract to private companies, and we definitely don't need Veolia in the city of Baltimore.
Thank you. Sir.
How you doing?
Good.
My name is Jonathan Epps. I'm a second-generation city worker, 15 years. Like you, sir, I've served in this country, well, this city, and I take great pride in this city. I strongly believe that we should not involve Veolia in our affairs at all, okay? I work hard. I have family that I have to take care of. Involving Veolia would only take away my job, take away my livelihood, that I actually work for. You know, I work hard. Even now, I was actually working. I actually took some time off to actually come here and give you my opinion, okay? As you can see, I'm still in my uniform. I ain't even get a chance to change my clothes. I'm still dirty. I'm soiled from being the person that's out there in the fields, slaving, trying to make the city great like how it is. Hey, boss, how you doing? Yeah. So, yes, I want you to understand, please do not involve Veolia in any of our affairs. They're not worthy. If anything, as you see, we're here. We come here and we work hard for y'all, and we don't complain much. So give us that. Give us what we need. Give us the proper tools and education, and you'll see a much better city employer. That's what y'all want. That's what y'all need. So help us, help you, help us. All right? Have a good day. God bless.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Carter. I'm Executive Director of Maryland Working Families. I'm here on behalf of our 8 affiliates and our 30,000 members across the state. We're here because we're really concerned about this process. And let me take a moment to say thank you for having this hearing. I know all of the people here, especially the people, the 100 or so people who are upstairs, really appreciate your taking the time to listen to our concerns and to really ask the tough questions. There's a saying that I learned many years ago that a wise man learns from his own, a fool learns from his own mistakes, and a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. You've heard tonight already about the dozens of cities who've had this experience where they opened up their water system and their public works to a consultant who then miraculously found much to do and promised the world and delivered little. And we'd like you to learn from their mistakes before we go down the road of Detroit and some of the other cities. We think that decisions about the management and operation of Baltimore's water system should be made transparently and democratically. We're concerned about the process that has taken place so far and the secrecy that shrouded it. We think that, quite honestly, where there's smoke, there may be fire. And Maryland Working Families stands with the community here to say that we're holding you to a high standard, and we want to see you represent us, the citizens, and our interests. And if we feel like you're not, we're going to make sure that we remember it at election time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Ovo. I'm Baltimore resident and former super shuttle driver, BWI. I know you hear, it's a long time, every time the people are talking very negative about Veolia across the country, but today I want to just talk about my personal experience with that company. I came to Super Shadow in November 2004 to look for a job at BWI Airport. The assistant general manager at that time offered me a job with condition. They say, okay, you can come and become a rich man with us. You can run your own business. He told me I need to pay a franchise that is costing $24,000 at that time. To be honest with you, this franchise is just a scam, a kind of rip-off they organize to just collect money from immigrants from Africa working at BWI Airport. And I told them at that time that I don't have these $24,000. They say, okay, you can work and pay that money every week. I say, okay, that's fine. And they say, okay, it can take like 10 years to pay off the franchise. And I told them, okay, let me pay this franchise in 5 years. And I work hard, very, very hard, almost 20 hours a day. And I paid this franchise off in 2005. I started in 2005, and I paid off in 2010. I was asking them a receipt. They said they cannot give me a receipt. I was the first driver asking a receipt about this franchise I say I bought with them. Let me tell you, for $24,000 in 5 years, they took me $35,000 without a receipt. And then the working condition was very, very hard. You can leave your family, go to work for a whole week. Maybe you can come home maybe twice or 3 times. At the end of the week, you can go home with nothing. We were complaining about working condition. Nobody wanted to listen to us. We were asking many times to meet the staff, the management, to call about working condition. They refused to meet the drivers. They said they don't have time to meet with the driver. And then, so after I started working with Veolia, I realized that it was not a business. I didn't owe any business. I was just the employee. They are just employing me, exploiting the driver over there. And after I finished to pay in 2010 my franchise, I was asking them, what is the value of my franchise? They are not giving me any answer. They say they could not answer that question. That was the first driver coming to ask this question, so they don't have any receipt to me, so they didn't give me any receipt. So, one moment.
Chair, I'm going to ask you to wrap up for me, please.
We continue to work, but the working condition was very hard, and they put some equipment in our van for dispatching. The equipment were not working, and they were taking $500 every week from each driver for equipment that is not working. So the driver put the same together to protest. And in November 6, 2013, we were like 60 drivers rallied through inside the airport because we were asking to sit down, talk with them, find a solution to our condition. They refused. So we decided to make a rally, and we make a rally that day. It was very quiet, very respectful, no noise, through inside the airport. It was in November 1 year now. And in December 10, they called me with one of my drivers, and they kicked us out of the business. That's fine. But if we can get maybe our money back or something, that will be fine. So they seize our money also. And now we apply. We apply for unemployment. They even fighting us.
So we're getting close to the TV being turned off, and I want the others to also have an opportunity. I apologize for cutting you short, but if you could do a last sentence, I really need
Okay.
us to move on. If you have a written testimony, we will include that in the full record of what you're, of the tonight's hearing.
Thank you very much. I just want to let you know Super Shadow is doing slavery across the country, so we cannot allow Veolia in Baltimore sign a contract with Veolia.
Right. All right, we will follow up. Thank
you
you.
very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Good evening, council
evening.
members. My name's Stephen Cece. I'm with the Baltimore People's Power Assembly. I'm going to be real brief. I just want to go on the record totally against Veolia coming in Baltimore, as other people have stated. I think or whatever that $500,000 that study can be going to could actually go towards people who are in the rears, who will be losing their houses, who are behind on water bills. I know people personally who have lost their houses because of water bills, and I know that $500,000 could have went and helped them to keep their homes in this city. So that money or whatever that is just basically lining somebody's pocket could be saving people's homes. And I think or whatever that, like other of my colleagues said, that water is a right, is a human right or whatever. Start looking at some of these big entities like the Stadium Authority, like Johns Hopkins, who don't pay taxes, who are some of these big corporations who really use our water, and see if they're not ripping off our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Aletha Jones. I'm a member with United Workers. I'm also a part of the One Baltimore Coalition. And I'm basically here today to speak on why it is important for us to keep our public water system public. We at United Workers, we believe in a fair development and human rights for all, and we want development that benefits everyone across the city. No one should be left out. There should be equity across the board. We are all humans and deserve to live a stable, safe, and healthy life. By privatizing our water systems with corporations like Veolia, it would threaten the well-being and rights of our residents and workers throughout the city. The main priority of companies like Veolia is to make profit and not to maintain the quality of life and the needs of residents and workers. When reading about the personal experiences of people dealing with the harmful impacts of Veolia in Indianapolis, there were experiences where Veolia did not properly read the meters and overcharged people based on faulty estimates. There are people on fixed incomes that struggled to pay their high water bills and had to make decisions on whether to pay the bill or to put food on the table. No one should have to make tough choices like that. Everyone deserves a human right to water and to live a healthy life. And not only that, I want to speak on our city workers as well. Privatizing our water would mean that our city workers will be at the mercy of this private company. The rights of our city workers will be threatened, and thus the well-being of their families as well. So if the water system becomes privatized, what will be the power of the workers to collectively bargain and organize? Will their rights be protected? So we need to keep our public goods, like our water system, public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Juliana Schulman, and I'm a public health professional at Johns Hopkins and a Baltimore City resident. Thank you again, counselors, for your responsiveness to the concerns of Baltimore residents and for calling this hearing today. I'm here because I'm deeply concerned about the public health implications of any potential contract that could lead to water privatization here in Baltimore. Around the world, publicly owned and operated water systems have been and continue to be the best way to guarantee equitable access to clean and safe water for the entire community. In fact, because of their role in preventing disease, public water systems are considered one of the greatest public health victories in history. In contrast, private water corporations have a fiduciary obligation to prioritize shareholders, which comes at the expense of the environment, our democratic processes, workers, and human health. No matter how water privatizers frame their intentions, we've seen that time and time again, the outcomes speak for themselves. From Manila to Indianapolis, private water contracts have led to higher rates, lower quality, decreased access, and strings of environmental abuses, all negatively impacting the health of communities. Here in Baltimore, we have an excellent public water system that we're proud of, and this critical service is just too important to risk taking advice from a water privatizer with a history of raising rates and cutting corners, both of which are jeopardizing the public's health. Counselors, you have a really critical role to play in protecting our water and our health, and keeping public water in public hands is essential to doing so. We must not allow water privatizers to gain a foothold here in Baltimore, and I'm calling on you to investigate this proposed contract with Veolia and to consider all options to halt it. Thank you.
Good evening to the City Council and fellow city workers. My name is Jeff Barner. I have lived in Baltimore City since 2001. I'm currently a resident in District 11. I moved here from Aberdeen, Maryland after concluding a 22-year career in the military. I'm a bellman at the Hilton Baltimore Hotel and a member of the Unite Here Local 7. I decided to testify today because I, like so many other hospitality workers in our city, have a pressing concern and uncertainty about the direction of our city. When I learned of Viola's efforts to win a consulting agreement in Baltimore and the city's refusal to disclose information about the consulting agreement, I thought to myself, here we go again, another backroom deal. The truth is that we, the working people of Baltimore City, do not trust that this is in our best interest, and the lack of transparency on the part of the city government gives us even more concern. Veolia has a well-documented track record of seeking profits at the expense of communities. Here are just two examples. Indianapolis, Indiana. In 2002, Veolia signed a 20-year, $1.1 billion contract to privatize water service to more than 1 million people. Since then, residents have brought lawsuits against Veolia twice, once for breaking the state contract law and once for overcharging 250,000 residents. A grand jury has subpoenaed 4 Veolia employees for allegations of falsifying water reports. The grand jury investigated accusations by the city and county officials that Veolia was skimping on staffing, water testing, maintenance, and chemicals. In Lynn, Massachusetts in 1999, Lynn City Council, led by a pro-privatization mayor, voted to approve an expensive 20-year, $48 million contract with U.S. Filter, owned by Veolia, to upgrade its problematic and aging sewer system. The city signed a weak contract that left it liable for expenses due to sewer overflows and flooding as a result of poor design, workmanship, and the quality of the system upgrades by U.S. Filter. In 2004, the city was forced to end the contract and resume plant operations after discovering that the water corporation's required $15 million letter of credit expired in 2001. The company had failed to stay adequately bonded. The city lost $22 million in flawed privatization deal, and Massachusetts Inspector General found that Lynn's leadership failed to protect the taxpayers from a bad deal. He also found that the city's contract with Veolia, owned by U.S. Filter, which allowed the company to downsize staffing by 20%, would reap greater profits without lowering rates for Lynn's residents. The results of these and other ventures into privatizing the management of public water supplies is as follows. Skyrocketing water rates, environmental damage and violations, cities paying millions of dollars to clean up Viola's mess. All of this is public information. This is Viola's own track record, so you can see why we as hospitality workers are concerned. We work for the second largest industry in the city, an industry that has been encouraged by tax breaks and other financial incentives. We have supported many of these initiatives because it has brought jobs and commerce to Baltimore City, but we cannot make ends meet while working in these hospitality jobs because the cost of basic services like water goes up, or because we do not have access to clean water, or the environmental standards in our community declines. So what are we to do? When I talk with my coworkers and friends and neighbors, I hear frustration. I hear anger over the uncertainties that we face. That is why I'm here today before the City Council to enter any agreement with Viola, the residents, taxpayers like me and others here today. We need to know that what is going on, and we need to have opportunity to be heard. No more backroom deals. Viola has a history of getting a foothold in the community through consulting agreements, such as the one in question today, so our concerns are well-founded. It appears that there is a bias in favor of private companies, a belief that the private company would do a better job than a publicly traded operation. As I said, I had a 22-year career in the U.S. military. I worked in the research and development unit at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. We tested improved systems and equipment before they were implemented. One of the projects was a water
Can I
pilot.
ask you to stop? It's
It's
unfair to the
And we
other.
want the other ones at least to be seen on TV, please.
Okay, no problem. Not a problem. I'm gonna get to it.
Need you to give a
Baltimore
final
City-
sentence, sir.
No
please.
problem.
I
Well,
appreciate
listen,
it.
thank you so much. I thank you for your opportunity to address this, you today. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you,
Good evening. I'm Father Ty Hollinger. I'm pastor of 3 Catholic parishes in the 45th District, so city priest. Also a member of Interfaith Worker Justice of Maryland. And just 3 months ago on Labor Day weekend, some of our churches hosted a Labor in the Pulpits campaign where we heard from some of the workers, the super shuttle workers who work for this Veolia company. And we heard just what you've heard tonight about a system that really borderlines on slavery or indentured servitude. We in our congregations sympathize with what these women and men are sharing with us, especially in my parishes. We have a large number of immigrant families from West Africa, and we know that it is many West African immigrants to Baltimore who have been sucked into these jobs with Veolia and then forced to pay excessive fees, as you've heard, and never be able to even bring home a decent wage to serve the needs of their families. As one worker said, I paid $35,000 for my franchise. I pay so many fees to the company, I go home with no money at the end of the week. I am not a business owner. I'm Super Shuttle's indentured servant. We heard their message, and we are deciding as faith communities around Baltimore to stand with these workers, so it's really important that we learn about Veolia in Baltimore right now, 2014, what's going on. We had the opportunity to receive these postcards. It has a message that, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your point of view, is still very relevant almost 50 years later. I am a man, and I will not be silenced. It was public sector workers who, again, about 50 years ago, carried these banners in marches and pickets, and that could still happen again today. In fact, it already is happening with the super shuttle drivers. Maybe the water workers will be next. I'd like to take this this has been in my prayer book for 3 months. I'd like to take it out and give it to you guys tonight for the committee to look this over too. There's some information on the back about what's been going on with Veolia workers today. Thank you.
thank you, Father. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike McGuire, resident of Hamden, community activist. Thanks for hosting the hearing. Just very briefly, and listening to you, Director Chow, today, it sounded like it was a very honest process where the Department of Public Works needed some consultant or needed some advice to modernize the system and
Right,
improve
sir.
things.
You're addressing the committee, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, he made it sound pretty good, but I think that it was a little bit disingenuous because I feel like the process didn't come from the Department of Public Works, and we're talking about this consulting thing. But what we're talking about is a program or a proposal that came from a year and a half of lobbying that Veolia did with the city of Baltimore. They didn't do it for a $500,000 water contract, just like in St. Louis where they proposed something very similar for a much lower price. They had years of lobbying. They had 6 months of hearings in which executives were flown in. This isn't about a small consulting thing. This is part of the business model that Veolia has, which moves towards privatization, although they're not calling it privatization anymore because it's so unpopular for obvious reasons that we've seen here tonight. So reject this. This is Veolia trying to get its foot in the door. So let's just slam the door on Veolia.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
My name is Lauren DeRusha, and I'm an organizer with Corporate Accountability International, but I'm actually reading a statement tonight on behalf of Peter Kovacs of Indianapolis. My name is Peter Kovacs. I have practiced law in Indiana for over 20 years. Beginning in 2008, I represented individuals in a class action lawsuit against Veolia in Indianapolis. I've been asked to briefly share what we learned during that litigation so that your consideration of a public-private partnership may be better informed. In 2002, Veolia entered into an agreement with the City of Indianapolis to operate and manage the city-owned waterworks. As such, Veolia Water was responsible for the day-to-day operations of the water utility, including billing, water production, and capital improvements. All employees of the water utility were in fact employees of Veolia Water. Our class action lawsuit centered on the billing practices of Veolia, namely how Veolia estimated customers' water usage. At the time, customers were billed every month for the water they used, but their meters were only read every other month. The intervening months required that Veolia Water apply a tariffed formula to estimate water usage based on historical data specific to each customer. Prior to the filing of the class action lawsuit, a great public uproar emerged, which centered on extremely high estimated water bills being issued to the utility's customers during the winter period, a period of traditionally low usage. The local media in Indianapolis took up the issue. In response, Veolia continually insisted it was applying a, quote, state-approved formula for estimating water usage. It was only after the filing of the lawsuit that the truth emerged as to the cause of this controversy. First, as was revealed by subsequent public hearings at the Utility Commission in Indiana, Veolia was indeed applying a formula that was different than the formula in the tariff. Moreover, that the formula was being used to estimate customers' water bills tended to overestimate usage, thereby adding a burden to the customer's bill. Second, Veolia Water drastically reduced its meter reading so that customers' meters were not read every other month. Instead, in thousands of cases, meters were not read for 7 or more consecutive months. The application of the incorrect formula, combined with the lack of meter reading activity, had a dramatic impact on customers' water bills. In thousands of cases—
I have to ask you to close, please.
Okay. Upon the filing of the lawsuit in Indianapolis, I personally received hundreds of calls from concerned citizens that they had been hurt by the conduct of Veolia Water, and in fact were on a fixed income who were forced to make choices between paying their water bills or buying prescriptions, and who had to cut back on expenses just to make ends meet to pay these bills. So as you consider your choices in Baltimore, I would respectfully suggest that you pay particularly close attention to whether it is
No, I
wise
meant close sooner, please.
to leave important matters in the hands of a private entity that may not have your constituents' best interests in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Robb, and I live here in Baltimore City. I also work here in Baltimore City, and I've had great experiences with Department of Public Works and the water folks. They've come out, they've been fantastic, so I don't think there's much more to be said about those folks. They pay taxes, they live here. I want them to have good jobs and make a good living just like myself. So I worry for those folks. I also am concerned that people don't realize Veolia already has contracts. Besides contracts with institutions, with the buses, they operate a plant down, I believe it's in Brooklyn, that deals with solid waste. I think that folks should take a look at those contracts. The city, our council people should take a look and see how they look from a distance, see what's happening with them. I also think that the conflict of interest that everybody's pointed out here, let's remember, Kellogg, Root and Brown told us that we needed to privatize our military in this country. Now, we all know what happened after that, and we wonder if there's some big connections. So that's a record that's there, a precedent that's been set. Finally, I think an important thing we all need to recognize that water is an issue. If we need to bring consultants in on this, we have a number of institutions. We have the University of Maryland, Baltimore County that has engineers. We have the Bloomberg School. Why couldn't we give that money in state, in county? Baltimore County gets its water from Baltimore City. Why couldn't we pay that very same money to those institutions who don't have a conflict of interest if we need the advisement from those people, who there may still be influence on the institutions themselves by donors to them, but it's not such a direct and immediate conflict. So I think that is a possibility that we really, really need to go back, track, and look at. Now, one more thing, home serve. I don't understand the point that was brought up about how pre-existing conditions. Well, you could very easily go in and do hydrostatic tests of line, as well as go in with, there's snakes that have cameras now that are used all over the city. The Department of Public Works hires to have those used. You could go in and look at the condition of these lines from the houses to the sidewalk, because a lot of folks aren't going to realize that this is about those lines and not all of their plumbing, and there's going to be a lot of misunderstandings, and they're going to be stuck with bills they cannot handle.
So I think there are a whole lot of other ways we can approach this without being committed to these folks that really have an interest in making money, and that usually doesn't mean anything but cutting corners, and cutting corners is not a good thing.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Baldridge. I'm the president of the Maryland and D.C. Alliance for Retired Americans. It's a national organization of about 4.3 million people. We have about 83,000 in Maryland. The Alliance is an advocacy organization on the obvious issues, Social Security and Medicare, but we also are involved in the issues that affect our members in their current situation, but also their previous situation. So retired public employees are a large part of my constituency, and yours too. From the classroom to the boiler room to the courthouse and water treatment plant, and also from the former steel mills and shipyards, construction sites, and healthcare facilities. Active and retired members from AFSCME are here tonight. The largest affiliated component of my organization is the Retirees Chapter 1 of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Brother Middleton's organization. Just to be brief, many of our constituents are former public sector workers and have families who are still working and members of these and other unions. We are consumers of their services and the water they provide to us. We are democratically minded people who have lifetimes of work and community experience acting in and for democratic processes and ideals. Public ownership and oversight are intrinsic to this. I appreciate the difficulty that the DPW finds itself in with the inherent, what they call institutional knowledge, and I went through something like that in my employment before I retired, and so we took care of that. We were ahead of the ball. So I appreciate the position from which the DPW is coming. But however, I urge opposition to outside studies of our water system by Veolia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andre Powell. Great to see you. Okay, yeah, all right. Good evening. My name is Andre Powell, and tonight I wear two hats. I'm a member of the People's Power Assembly here in Baltimore. I am also a Maryland State employee, a member of AFSCME. AFSCME is a national union that has 1.6 million members. Convention after convention after convention, AFSCME has passed resolutions to take a stand against the privatization of government services, eliminating the jobs of public workers. So I stand here tonight as though I work for I'm a member of the statewide council, Council 3. I stand here in solidarity with my sisters and brothers in Council 67, Baltimore City employees, who have year after year been subject to layoff after layoff after layoff. It's time for the bleeding to stop. The loyal city workers have stayed here to work for the betterment of Baltimore City and make the lives of citizens of Baltimore City like me better. We need to continue to stand up and support them. Water is a human right. It should not be owned by any company, most particularly Veolia. Veolia is a union-busting organization. That is their prime purpose, to bust unions and to make profits. I heard the gentleman from the Department of Public Works speaks, and he may have spoken eloquently, but I'm telling you, there was some in there, as my father says, there were some lines of bull job in there. I do not believe for absolutely 1 second that this feasibility study run by Veolia would not lead to Veolia privatizing the water operation to Veolia. That's why companies put out feasibility studies. They say, oh, this is the best thing to do, and then they go over here to the other side of this table and they say, well, let us do it. Veolia doesn't belong in Baltimore. They have no respect for the collective bargaining process that many city employees work under. Baltimore has a long history of a labor town, and I stand here and urge all labor to stand up against the privatization of any more city jobs. City workers are loyal, and they deserve to keep their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. So we thank everyone for coming this evening. We thank the members of the council, Mr. President, and those, Councilman Branch, who have co-sponsored the resolution of the bill, the legislative oversight that was brought before us tonight. Mr. Chow, we thank you and your department, your leadership of the department, but know that the council members are very wary of both of these particular places that we're going with them. We do appreciate, we appreciate the panel that's come before us, all of the public. Did you have a closing statement, Mr. Chow? We're good. Okay. So we thank everyone for coming out. This is, as I said, live on television now, or maybe not now. You can downstream it. You can also probably see it at another time. We want to thank everyone for attending the hearing. Please check around the area, around your seat. Make certain you have everything you brought with you. We'll be closing the room very shortly. Ask everyone